Hello friends, welcome to another session on essay perspectives. Topic for today is what is research but a blind date with knowledge. Before wasting much time, let us jump. As always, before I proceed, I have a personal request. Third edition of my book Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude has been released. Unfortunately, the original book has been pirated. I urge all of you to buy original. Pirated copies are of very low print quality, very low paper quality. Original copies can be bought from the seller Arvind India on Flipkart, from the seller Affordable on Amazon. Friends, we should conceptualize essay as being made of various components and subcomponents. So this essay initially we would explain the essence of the topic, then we would explain the features of blind date and how they can be applied to research. Then we would analyze if research is really blind date or not, then we would conclude. Friends, I feel the best way to start this essay is by taking reference to Newton's discovery of gravitation. So how did Newton discover gravitation? All of us are aware that an apple fell and Newton observed it and Newton posed to himself, why did not apple go up, or why did not move in any other direction, why did it only fall? So this inquisitive mindset, this question actually made him go deeper into the facts and finally come up with the discovery of gravitation, right? But here we need to observe one thing very clearly. Before Newton, so many people had seen apples falling, so many people had seen other things falling on earth, but none of them had tried to investigate the reasons for objects falling only towards earth, not in any other direction, right? Only Newton could do it. Why? Because Newton had this inquisitive mindset, point one, and also Newton had this tendency to engage with the happenings around the world in order to know more about those happenings and also the reasons for those happenings. Correct. So this tendency is nothing but exploration of knowledge, which is nothing but dating the knowledge. Okay, let us anyway, in the forthcoming slides I would explain how this can be called dating with knowledge. So but what I am just trying to tell you is, see, Newton saw an apple falling, and if not for Newton, so many people had seen the similar phenomena, but they did not worry much about it. But it is Newton's tendency to observe things around him, and also the tendency to understand more about the happenings around the world. Correct? So the tendency of knowing is what made Newton to come up with the discovery of gravitational force. So this is what a date with knowledge that led to the research into gravitation, that led to the discovery of gravitation. Okay friends? Let's move on. You will get more clarity as to how this example can be linked only in the forthcoming slides. Okay friends, now once the introduction is given, it is important for us to explain the essence of the topic. The essence is, first you have to elaborate the meaning of research. What is research, friends? In common parlance, research implies intensively searching for awareness and insights. See, it research. What is search? You search for something. What does signify? Signifies intensively. If a person intensively and focusedly search for some findings, some understandings, some awareness, some insights, it is what we call research. Correct? It's not casually searching for something. Intensively searching for some information, some understanding, some insights is research. Correct? So next is date. See, the keywords of this topic is research, blind date, knowledge, right? So once we have explained the meaning of research, then we have to explain first the meaning of date. Date is basically a social engagement with another individual to understand more about that individual. Correct, right? When would two persons date? What is the purpose of dating? Dating is basically a social engagement between two individuals, mostly of opposite genders, so who try to understand more about each other. Correct? So then what is blind date? We have now understood the meaning of date. Now we have to understand the meaning of blind date. See, under date, whenever you are dating, whenever you are meeting a person, you already know about him and you are trying to understand more about him. Correct. Blind date is something where two unknown individuals come together, they meet at a place and they try to understand each other. So this is the small difference between date and blind date. Hope I have made sense. Let us say there are two friends. Okay, they already know each other. They go on dating. That means they go to a hotel, they go to a resort, they go to some other place to understand each other, and that becomes date. Then what is this blind date? Blind date is when two unknown persons, which mostly happens in, which mostly happens through matrimonial websites, etc., etc., etc. I am just giving you I'm just attempting to make you understand the meaning of blind date. That's it. When two unknown persons meet for the first time, they try to understand each other. That is what we call blind date. Okay, so that means the significant difference between dating and blind dating is that under dating, two persons already are aware of each other, but they are trying to understand more about each other. Under blind date, two persons are unknown to each other, but they are trying to understand about each other. Okay, this is date and this is blind date. Then what is the third one is knowledge. Basically, what is dating with knowledge? See, dating with knowledge implies engaging with knowledge to gain more knowledge. Correct. See, let us say there is a chemistry professor. Chemistry professor knows about chemistry already, but he engages intensively with the chemistry in order to know more about chemistry. That means he intends to learn or understand or unearth or to find out more and more about chemistry. That is what we call dating with chemistry, dating with knowledge. Correct. What is this blind dating with knowledge? Blind dating with knowledge means, see, a chemistry professor engaging with chemistry to know more about chemistry is just dating. But when a person who does not have much of the understanding of the subject already, if he or she comes across some things and if he or she finds out something about that, then that is what we call blind date. That is what happened with Newton. When that, let us say the apple fell, Newton was not a physicist already. He did not have any background knowledge of gravitation or whatsoever. So, but yet Newton ran behind that ran behind that one phenomena and tried to understand the reasons behind it. That is what we call blind date. Blind date with knowledge. Okay, if already some knowledge is there about a subject to a person and he wants to know more about it, then that is date. If a person is very new to the subject and he wants to know more about it, then that is what we call blind date. Hope I have made it clear, friends. So then friends, I also want to make it clear that the research is different from invention. Okay, invention is creating, in case of invention, we are creating an altogether new thing. Correct. It is basically, invention is basically creation of a physical thing. Research is a broader term. Research actually implies exploring and finding out more and more understanding and more insights. Okay, in case of invention, it is always a blind date, because let us say Thomas Alva Edison wanted to discover a bulb. Bulb was not at all existent. He wanted to do trial and error, etc., etc. Finally, he had to find out a bulb. Correct. There, in cases of invention, it is mostly blind date always. Okay, but it is different from research. Invention is, we can call a subset of research. Correct. So invention is doing newer things. Discovery is finding out older things. This is the difference actually. So something that is already existing but we don't know, you find out, then that is discovery. Something which is not existent and you create altogether, that is invention. So research is a broader term. It includes both discovery and invention. So it should not be confused with invention. Thank you, friends. And friends, since what is the topic? The topic says what is research but a blind date with knowledge. So it is important for us to first understand the features of blind date so that we would apply the same principles to research to analyze and conclude whether research is essentially a blind date or not. So the first thing is, what is blind date? I told you blind date is a social engagement with mostly an unknown person. Correct? So that is what we call blind date. So second thing is, while they totally engrossed with that person. What does it mean? While you are on a blind date with someone, correct? You are totally engrossed with that person because you want to know more about that person. Then the third important feature of a blind date is uncertain outcome. See, when you go and try to understand about an unknown person, whether you would find any fruitful outcome or not is very uncertain. Whether you would really get to know totally about that person is uncertain. Whether you would continue the relationship or discontinue the relationship is also uncertain. So the outcome of blind date is always uncertain. Always. Then the fourth thing is, the objective of any blind date is to just know about that person. It is to understand more about that person, not to involve in any other any relationship beyond knowing a person. Correct? So let us apply the same thing to research. Now we have to apply the same thing to research to analyze whether research is a blind date or not. Okay, so let us take the first feature, unknown person. See, in cases of research also, in most of the cases, we would not know about that subject altogether. Let us take the example of C.V. Raman, who discovered the reason for sky being blue. See, the observation of C.V. Raman that why should sky always be blue, the question that he posed to himself led to the discovery of scattering of light. Correct? See, this concept of scattering of light was not known to anyone earlier. So he wanted to engage with a phenomena which was not known to, or he wanted to engage with a physics concept which was not known to anyone earlier. Correct? So that is the first feature of the blind date, is that it is mostly with an unknown person. So here, even in case of research, it is mostly with an unknown concept, unknown scientific concept, unknown humanities concept, whatever. Correct? So that is the first reason. Second thing is totally engrossed with that person. See, what is meant by this totally engrossed with that person? Whenever you are in a date, you want to know more about that person, your focus is totally on that person. Similarly, what is the focus on the research? Because you want to know more about it, so you put all your energies and your focus is only about that subject. See, that's what I said. Research essentially means intensively searching for newer understandings and analysis or findings or insights, whatever. Correct? So second feature also holds good. Third one is uncertain outcome. See, when I want to know the reason for sky being blue, I am not sure whether that would be because of scattering of light, whether that would be because of a presence of some particles, or whether that would be because of some illusion. We really don't know when we start. So thus, we cannot have a certain outcome when we start the research. So the entire objective is to find some outcome, correct, which is not certain. So that is the third feature. So what is the objective is always to know about that person. In the blind date, the objective is to know more about that person. Even in research, the objective is to know more about some phenomena. Thus, the predominant four features of blind date are satisfied by research. So thus we can conclude that research is a blind date with knowledge. Yet there is one feature which there is one aspect of research which cannot be compared to a blind date, which also proves that research is a blind date. In other words, in addition to the features of the blind date that would convince us that research is a blind date, there is another feature of the research which would also support our claim. That is that interdisciplinary nature of research. See, in most of the newer findings actually emerges mostly by the synthesis of two disciplines, two understandings. Correct? See, normally if research were to be always dating with knowledge, then the findings, newer findings should hide or should be hidden only in one discipline. Correct? But now there are multiple disciplines are brought together to get more understandings. Correct? The best example for this is Veblen goods and Giffen goods. I think all of you have read about Giffen goods and Veblen goods in economics. What is Giffen goods? Basically, Giffen goods is something that defies law of demand. What does law of demand say? Law of demand say that price and quantity of demand are inversely proportional. As price increases, quantity decreases. As price decreases, quantity increases. See, this is what the law of demand signify. But when it comes to the Giffen goods, law of demand does not behave the way it should behave. That means as the prices of Giffen goods decreases, the quantities demanded also decrease because the consumers try to compensate with better goods. Correct? So here this understanding would not have emerged had the economists tried to find the understanding in economics itself. But what the economist Giffen did, he brought psychology and economics together, and that led to the understanding of Giffen goods. Correct? Rationale behind Giffen goods. So what I am trying to tell you is, if mostly the research into the same discipline would actually mean dating with the discipline leading to some findings. But since research is essentially an interdisciplinary one, it necessitates bringing two disciplines together, and this bringing of two disciplines together is mostly done unintentionally. Correct? See, you will be observing something, you want to find out the reason, you try to find the reason for it in discipline A or discipline B or discipline C, or by the synthesis of all A, B, C. Then you will find out the proper reason, you will find out the proper finding. Correct? So thus, since the essential, the interdisciplinary nature of research itself signifies that research is a blind date with knowledge. Friends, as always, we need to bat for the topic, we need to argue for the topic, we need to justify the topic, and then we need to pause for a bit and then counter the topic itself, so that an element of analysis is included. So here then what is the next question? Is research always a blind date then? Correct? Then the answer is no. Why? Because first one is experimentation. See, so many times we design an experiment, okay, in order to find out the veracity of a specific conclusion. In such kinds of researchers, a person who is already an expert in the subject wants to expand his understanding without seeking any help from any other discipline. He is just trying to examine, he is just trying to confirm to himself or whether something holds good or not. Such kind of experimentations would actually mean that research is a date with knowledge, not a blind date with knowledge actually. So for example, research to find out the impact of COVID on educational outcomes. Here the researcher would just try to analyze whether COVID has adversely impacted or not. So here it is just like this is an experimentation. As a person who, an educationist who already knows about it, would just find out whether COVID has really adversely affected or not. In this kind of scenarios, research is not a blind date, right? I have a purpose, I know the outcome. The outcome can be only either. The outcome can be yes, it has adversely affected, or yes, it has not adversely affected. At max, we would just find out that the COVID has adversely affected the educational outcomes to the extent of 30% or to the extent of 40%. So, thus, Under experimentations we set up a problem, we create a hypothesis, and we try to signify or we try to find out the veracity of that hypothesis, or we try to prove or disprove that hypothesis. And sometimes we would also try to understand the extent to which the hypothesis holds good or hypothesis does not hold good. Correct? So in that case it is not a blind date with knowledge. We know we have a purpose, we know about that subject, yet we try to better or strengthen our understanding about that subject. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is problem solving. What problem solving research? See, there is something called problem solving research. Whenever you come up with a problem, you try to just find out the solution about that research. In such a scenario, see, for Newton or for C.V. Raman, they did not face any problem. Gravitation, they just observed the surroundings and they wanted to expand the understanding of the surroundings. Correct? Whether it is gravitation or sky being blue. Correct? They did not try to solve any problem, but there are researchers only to solve a particular problem. Correct? See, let us say we are seeing carbon increase in the carbon footprint leading to climate change and global warming. Correct? So this is a problem. What is the solution? You have to launch a research in order to find solution for that problem. How do you do that? Obviously, you try to seek some greener fuels, greener ways of living, etc., etc. So, this research into finding greener fuels is with a specific purpose and it is done in already existing disciplines. So, mostly problem solving research is we know the subject already. We are trying to find solutions from that subject itself. Correct? So, it is not a blind date. It is just a date with knowledge. Then the third one is literature review. See, in any research in most researches for that matter, we first try to understand whatever has already been done in that field. Correct? So, any research paper for that matter essentially contains a section called literature review, where all the understandings, all the researchers that have already gone into that subject are first analyzed, first explained. Then only the further research is taken up. So this literature review aspect of research essentially makes it a date with knowledge, not a blind date with knowledge. Correct, friends? So thus, after all these things, so now it is time for us to conclude. From the above discussion, we can safely conclude that research essentially means expanding of our understanding, seeking solutions to the problems. This expansion of understanding and seeking solutions to the problems can happen from the existing knowledge or from the or it may necessitate creation of new knowledge. So thus research essentially, research can be both date with knowledge and blind date with knowledge. Correct? So this is how you can conclude and you can end. So even if you want to give a better conclusion, I would feel the better way to do it is expanding the understanding of expanding the existing understanding means dating with knowledge. Finding out new understanding, creating new inventions, creating new solutions is blind date with knowledge. So research essentially has two aspects. One is expanding the current understanding. Second is unearthing the new understanding. So while the first one essentially or mostly implies dating with knowledge, the second aspect essentially means blind dating with knowledge. Okay friends, so let's meet next week with another topic. All the best, happy reading.